Yet we have effectively managed an unprecedented number of non-citizens seeking to enter the United States.
I think there's a general concern about Trump supporters potentially showing up armed to the polls.
If our border is the first line of defense, we're going to lose, and this is unsustainable.
The Biden Truth Ministry is coming to fruition. A director has been appointed. It is hilarious. The Biden administration also sends their Homeland Security Secretary to testify in Congress, and he kind of said some ridiculous things. San Francisco's homeless hotel problem. Holy cow, we got a jam-packed show. My name is Jobob. This is Daily Caller Live, and it starts right now.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go.
That might be the only brown guy on earth named Jobob.
That is actually her name, Jobob.
Live from the dingy bunker, completely cut off from the outside world, except for you fine folks. My name is Jobob. This is Daily Caller Live. Thanks so much for tuning in on today. It is Thursday, April 28th, the year of our Lord 2022. New you in 22. Get that new you started. Speaking of new, the Biden administration is putting in a truth ministry, which is hilarious. Secretary Mayorkas of Homeland Security testified in front of Congress today and yesterday, and it's not good. It's not looking good for them down on at the border. We'll talk about San Francisco's homeless hotel crisis / problem, but I want to get to this thing first because this is comical, dystopian, scary a lot, but also it's crazy that it's happening. Joe Biden is implementing a truth ministry to tackle disinformation. The Biden Disinformation Task Force is headed up by, I'll skip this part because it's somewhat demeaning to the person, by a Russia expert who called Hunter Biden's Trump laptop campaign, Hunter Biden's laptop a Trump campaign product. President Biden has set up a disinformation board headed up by a woke so-called expert who's against free speech and tried to pour cold water on the Hunter Biden laptop scandal. Nina Janowitz, that's how you say it, Janowitz, will head the department's Homeland Security Disinformation Governance Board as executive director, Politico reported on Wednesday morning. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, who we'll talk about in just a couple minutes because he's the guy who was testifying in front of Congress on the border, which is a different thing, but is also heading up this department, did not disclose any powers that he would grant the dystopian-sounding board while addressing lawmakers on Wednesday. So timeline this out really quick. The Biden administration is putting in a truth ministry. Then the person who was supposed to be the head of the truth ministry comes out, says, well, we don't know what powers we're actually going to give them. That is Alejandro Mayorkas, the Secretary of Homeland Security. Mayorkas focused that the new board, this is again where it comes into your super lefty racism, Mayorkas noted that the focus of the new board would be to stop the spread of misinformation in minority communities because those dumb minorities can't figure out what's true and what's not. So us super enlightened Biden administration need to help them figure it out for themselves, including election misinformation ahead of the 2022 midterms. This is by Daily Mail, by the way. They did not put in the racist part. I did that because it is, stop the spread of misinformation from minority communities. How demeaning is that? I don't want to sound like a broken record continually talking about the fact that the Biden administration feels like they need to cater to minority communities. Oh, we're going to only pick from black women for the Supreme Court. Oh, the minority communities are more susceptible to misinformation. They're too dumb to figure it out on their own. We must help them. He added that the latest focus, the focus on the latest trend of misinformation, allegedly targeting Spanish-speaking voters. No further detail on the exact misinformation being deployed against these communities was shared. That's because, well, We'll leave that there for now. Nina Jankowicz. I don't know how to say her last name, which is, I'm allowed to not know how to say people's names because nobody knows how to say my name, so that's fine. Is the official tapped to head the Department of Homeland Security's newly formed Disinformation Governance Board, attempted to discredit the Hunter Biden laptop story. So in October of 2020, Nina said to ABC News that we should view the Hunter Biden laptop, as a Trump campaign product. That's what everyone was saying way back when. Remember, people were getting banned from Twitter. The New York Post, who had the story, got kicked out of their Twitter account for 2 or 3 weeks because they would not take down the Hunter Biden laptop story. Turns out the Hunter Biden laptop is totally real. I can tell you from firsthand experience, it is definitely real. But this disinformation fighter, an expert on misinformation, Nina Jankowicz, says that, oh no, it was fake. It was a Trump campaign product. That wasn't real at all. She's going to head up the Truth Ministry. Jankowicz is currently a fellow at the Wilson Center who describes herself on her website as an internationally recognized expert on misinformation, disinformation, and democratization. She confirmed she was taking the job in the wake of the political report of her appointment. So this is some clips on CNN ahead of the 2020 election that this Nina Jankowicz said about Trump voters. Interesting take here. Listen to this and we'll discuss on the other side.
I think there's a general concern about Trump supporters potentially showing up armed to the polls, and these sorts of voter suppression, voter intimidation, that's illegal everywhere. Of course, there are, rules for partisan observers to be in the polling station, but in 40 states, you need special accreditation to do that. And I think there's just, again, a widespread fear that, groups of irregular supporters are going to show up at the polls to intimidate people and quote unquote watch. And that's very disturbing.
Wow, before we get into that, did you notice this is back from, I think it was mid-2020, maybe late 2020, when CNN had their ever constant COVID death ticker on the screen, which is weird and has been weird, and they finally got rid of it like a couple months ago. But the Truth Ministry Department Board head said that, there's a real possibility that Trump supporters show up to the polls armed with weapons to intimidate people. She actually said that and was serious about it. Here's a tweet from the same lady who's, again, going to head up the Biden Truth Truth Ministry. Let me get, so you can have full view of this. Last week, I told NPR Michael, I shudder to think about if free speech absolutists were taking over more platforms. What that would look like for the marginalized communities. If I could read, that would be great. Which is already shouldering disproportionate amounts of this abuse. Oh my goodness. What would happen? What would happen if free speech absolutists were taking more of a prominent stance in today's culture? The poor marginalized communities who are too dumb to stand up for themselves, Nina, wouldn't be able to shoulder any more burden of free speech or maybe people saying mean things about their ideas. Oh no. But this is the person appointed to head up Joe Biden's Truth Ministry. I don't know. Seems like, exactly what it is. Speaking of the people who are heading up the Truth Ministry, Alejandro Mayorkas is the Secretary of Homeland Security. The Truth Ministry Department of Disinformation Board, which again sounds super dystopian, is going to be housed underneath the Homeland Security Department, again, who's headed up by this guy, Alejandro Mayorkas, who has been a part of the news for the last couple of days because he is taking a stand to defend his department in front of Congress. He's on the Hill making some statements to congressional questioners talking about the border crisis. The border crisis, by the way, is insane. You have to hear this clip because it's almost unbelievable. I did way more digging than I thought I would have to do this morning to find this clip because I read it in print. And I was like, no, there's no way he said that. But he did, and so I found the clip and I'm going to bring it to you. If you haven't already, click the little like button, click the little share button thing, just right down here or right over there, the like button and share button really, really helps us out, gives us some more people, and helps ensure that we can continue doing what we're doing. So really, really appreciate you doing just that. But this is Secretary of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas and his opening remarks to Congress.
6, deter irregular migration south of our border in partnership with other federal agencies and nations. We inherited a broken and dismantled system that is already under strain. It is not built to manage the current levels and types of migratory flows. Only Congress can fix this. Yet we have effectively managed an unprecedented number of non-citizens seeking to enter the United States and interdicted more drugs and disrupted more smuggling operations than ever before. A significant increase in migrant encounters will strain our system even further, and we will address this challenge successfully. But it will take time, and we need the partnership of Congress, state and local officials, NGOs, and communities to do so.
So flat line here, or like bottom lining here, everything is fine at the border. Nothing is a problem at all whatsoever. I think it's really interesting the tact they're now taking. Jen Psaki in the White House press briefing room last week said, well, we inherited a very, very bad situation at the border. The Trump administration was not trying to find a bipartisan immigration solution. They instead were focusing on a wall, and walls don't work, including the one in front of the White House. That wall doesn't work at all, says Jen Psaki. And now that rhetoric is being echoed by Alejandro Mayorkas, the Secretary of Homeland Security, saying, well, we inherited a terrible problem. Of course, that is not the case. Illegal immigration has gone up substantially. I think they're estimating about 2 million people have crossed into the border this year alone. So, pause, tangent. The number has been like 11 million. We have 11 million illegal immigrants in our country for like the last 15 years. Have you been paying attention to this? Since like 2008, we have 11 million illegal immigrants in this country, and we need to do whatever depending on whatever side you're on. That number has stayed pretty consistent for like I said, the last 15 years, last decade and a half. It's been 11 million. I don't know where that number came from, but there's no way it's still 11 million. If we're just including the 2008 number with the 2 million from this past year, it's at least 13 million. Realistically, I think there was a bunch of reporting done on this by, I can't remember who it was. I think it was like the New York Times. So like there's probably like 20 to 25 million illegal immigrants in the country. But they still, for some reason, use that 11 million number. So we'll leave that where it is. But then he said, well, we've managed everything effectively at the border. Yeah, man, I don't know if you get to say you've effectively managed the border. That's like me telling my wife, hey, babe, I'm effectively managing our finances by gambling everything we own on the roulette table. I lost, but I did do it effectively. That's essentially what he sounds like when he's talking about that. But so this is what he's saying out in public. Obviously, you can't badmouth the administration if you work for the administration in the public view. But behind closed doors, this audio is a little bit muffled, so I'll read it afterward. He says some different things. This is uncovered by Bill Malugin of Fox News. Listen to this from the same secretary that says everything is totally fine at the border.
If our border is the first line of defense, we're going to lose, and this is unsustainable. We can't continue like this. Our people in the field can't continue, and our system isn't built for it.
So that was just so we can let me read it again so that we can hear it. If you weren't able to catch the audio, our border is our first line of defense. This is leaked audio from Mayorkas meeting with border agents. We're going to lose, and this is unsustainable. We can't continue like this. Our people in the field can't continue, and our system isn't built for it. Holy cow, some honesty coming out of Secretary Mayorkas. Obviously, he can't say that out loud, which makes sense. I wish we didn't live in a world where that was the case. But it is, and he can't say that out loud, so he's saying it behind closed doors when meeting with border agents. So that is that. We'll see if there's any other fire takes from the hearings today. See if anything comes of it. Ted Cruz is supposed to be giving a speech. I got bumped from Newsmax this morning because of Ted Cruz. Understandable, by the way. Sitting senator, me. He probably takes priority. But if anything comes of that, tomorrow we'll bring it to you on the Friday episode. I want to get to this really quick before we exit the air. This is one of those articles where, have you ever noticed this? I'm curious. I don't know how much you guys read the news, but for some reason, I don't subscribe to every newspaper. I probably should, but I'm also, balling on a budget here, so I can't get to every single newspaper. For some reason, there are articles that are free on my phone but can't come up on my computer. So I'm reading this thing off my phone. This has to do with the San Francisco hotels that they use to house homeless people. It has been a fascinating experiment to see. I'm glad that an experiment is being taken place of this nature that is not where I live. I don't want homeless. What's the term? NIMBY? Not in my backyard? Absolutely. Yeah. No, thank you. Not here. You know why? Because it doesn't freaking work. This is an article entitled "San Francisco Spent Millions to Shelter the Homeless in Hotels. These are the disastrous results." This is coming out of the San Francisco Chronicle. In a complex arrangement, the city's Department of Homeless and Supportive Housing, HSH, pays nonprofits to provide rooms and aids to formerly homeless people in about 70 single occupancy hotels. The buildings are a cornerstone of the $160 million program called Permanent Supportive Housing. But because San Francisco leaders for years have neglected the hotels and failed to meaningfully regulate the nonprofits that occupy them or that operate them, many of the hotels, which roughly house 6,000 people, have descended into a pattern of chaos, crime, and death, the investigation has found. Wow, I am shocked by that. I am absolutely floored by the fact that it didn't work. Here are some of the findings. HSH says its goal is to provide some residents with enough stability to enter more independent housing. But of the 515 tenants tracked by the government after they had left the permanent housing, a quarter of them died. So, okay, they call that exiting by passing away. An additional 21% returned to homelessness. So another quarter returned to homelessness, and 27% of them left for unknown destinations. Only about a quarter found stable housing, mostly by moving in with friends or family or into another taxpayer-subsidized building. So a quarter of them died, a quarter of them returned to homelessness, 27% of them, another quarter of them just kind of left and didn't say anything. And the last quarter of them found other housing with friends or family, which they could have done before they moved into homeless shelter housing or moved into another taxpayer facility. In other words, it doesn't freaking work. Literally, the $160 million program funded by the San Francisco taxpayers, and I would imagine the California taxpayers as a whole, because King Gavin loves San Francisco and loves sending them money that they don't need and don't spend wisely. Effectively speaking, 100% of it did not work. They either died, what's the term that they use? Exited by passing away, returned to homelessness, found other housing that they would have found otherwise, or just kind of disappeared into the system of homelessness. So none of that worked at all. This is what I thought was really interesting. At least 166 people fatally overdosed in city-funded hotels in 2020 and 2021. 14% of all confirmed overdose deaths in San Francisco, though the buildings house less than 1% of the city's population. Dang. effectively, what San Francisco did was provide a place for more people to overdose and die on drugs. Not a great look, San Francisco. There's more in this article that maybe we'll get to a little bit later on, but the premise of it is the San Francisco Chronicle, if you're not familiar with their newspaper, and I know this is a national show, but it's really good for a bunch of people who are not in California to receive some sort of insight into what's going on in the state of California. The San Francisco Chronicle, the newspaper, is not a right-leaning publication. They are very, very left. And the fact that they ran an article entitled what it is, San Francisco spent millions to shelter the homeless in hotels. These are the disastrous results. The fact that the San Francisco Chronicle ran that article says something about how bad it actually is. The idea of housing homeless people in hotels and just kind of letting them do their thing there and avoiding all responsibility that the city has doesn't work. It wastes millions of dollars. And like we looked at in the statistics, it didn't work at all in effectively removing people from the streets. They either returned to the streets, moved in with people, or died. It is okay to feel compassion for people who find themselves homeless. Generally speaking, they're bums and junkies. But it's okay to feel compassion for them and at the same time not want to have to deal with the problem where you live. It's not an unreasonable position to take, especially when they're spending millions of your taxpayer dollars. Let's see. That's probably going to do it for us today. That's ending on kind of a heavy note, but also just another example of how big government doesn't work at all, really, in any situation. If you haven't already, give me a follow on any of your social media accounts. Would appreciate doing that. Just type in JOBOB pretty much anywhere you listen, subscribe, Getter, Twitter, Truth, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. I don't know what other place. LinkedIn, I guess we could be friends on LinkedIn. I don't mind. I don't ever check that, but that's fine. Just type in JOBOB, you'll find me. Would appreciate the follow. And that's also how you can send me stories. If there's anything going on in your neck of the woods that's a local story that deserves national attention, feel free to message me on any of those social media platforms. Yeah, that's about it. We'll see you tomorrow. If you missed any part of the segment, you can rewatch this on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, wherever else it is that we're streaming. We'll see you tomorrow on a Friday, ending the week. See you then. God bless America.